Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this week I have 13 comics, a pretty average haul for myself, so let's get started. I go least favorite to best pick of the week. So, my least favorite this week was Ironman 2020, probably one of the bigger titles that came out this week. I actually got this signed by Dan Slott himself, so I sadly wasn't able to get to the signing, but my store did have one actually this Saturday, so that was pretty cool, and they held a copy on the side for me. So, Ironman 2020 though, let's get into the story. I am not a huge Arno fan, at all. I don't think I've ever liked an Arno story, but I wanted to try this one out, and I think it was a pretty new reader-friendly book, even as a timeline of who Arno is. I think it's towards the back of the issue. There is a lot of 2020 for the checklist. I didn't even realize that until I saw the back over there. It's a lot for the checklist. But anyways, there is a timeline. They kind of describe of who he is, but I just couldn't really get into his story. The other half being that where's Tony Stark. I think you'd probably be a bit more invested if you're actually reading Iron Man. I'm personally not reading Iron Man right now, but just wanted to give this one a shot. I've been really liking Dan Slott's Fantastic Four, though. That's kind of where I've been reading his work more. But yeah, Iron Man 2020, I just couldn't really get into this one. Artwork was pretty solid overall. Pete Woods, who's done some stuff for Archie Comics, did the art here. I thought the coloring was pretty crisp for this one. And then the cliffhanger is that we get to see the robots or machines kind of taking over, which, I don't know, it didn't really feel like a Marvel story to me. I thought that was interesting, question mark, I guess. I don't know. It didn't give me enough to read the next issue, but it could be an interesting story to explore. So, Iron Man 2020 issue 1 gets 2 stars, and that is number 13. So, moving on to Flash Forward issue 5. So, Flash Forward, that is number 12. So, Flash Forward is a book that I haven't really been enjoying, but I thought this issue was a little better than what we've been getting, and that's because we get to see a bit more of Wally and his kids and his past with his wife, and I wish this was the whole entire series, but also just doesn't quite make sense of what's been going on with Wally, and then in the end, it's more his fault of what's been going on between his kids and this dark multiverse, and I think it's kind of convoluted. It's not really for me. I like Wally as a character, but I don't really love the structure of this book or the direction DC's been taking the character. Artwork is pretty solid overall, especially, if you're used to Brett Boots' work. He's been working on the character with Titans and Flash he's done, so you're probably used to his artwork. And I like the family moments in this issue, but just didn't do it for me. So Flash Forward issue 5 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, which is Hellmouth issue 4. So I keep saying this. I don't really understand why they did a crossover so soon, and I feel like a lot of story that built up and deservingly built up in the show just kind of goes crashing towards you in this series in Buffy and Angel, where, it took a while for Buffy to learn that Angel was a vampire and the reaction felt organic. Here, it just felt like they needed that moment. And I didn't really understand Buffy's reaction because her friend's a vampire, so she could understand that not all vampires are bad, but in the show, she didn't know any other vampires, so it made sense why she would think the vampires or all vampires are bad. So I didn't really understand the reaction there. Also, just, again, I want to get back to the character stuff of Buffy and Angel and kind of get past this crossover. I think it was just way too soon to tell this story. Artwork-wise, I thought it was probably the strongest we've gotten, from character expressions to the horrific storyline or visuals we've been getting. So I did like the artwork a lot. So Hellmouth issue 4 gets 2.5 stars. I think that's the lowest a Buffy/Angel book has been for me. And that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which kind of takes a big jump rating-wise, and that is Frozen issue 3, True Treasure. So this is a lead-up to the sequel that already came out. But it's a fun story. If you're a Frozen fan, I think this is probably the best we've gotten out of all these Frozen tie-ins, because it does more directly tie into the movie, and I feel like they didn't have to hold back as much. And it's also exploration of their sisterhood, I guess, and their family, which quite doesn't make sense, of like, oh, I kind of forgive you, Mom and Dad, even though you separated us for 10 years, and you don't really have much of a motive besides Elsa was different and you didn't want Anna to get hurt. But I feel like they're trying to redeem them, but it's just not quite working for me. It didn't really work in the movie either. So overall, though, I enjoyed this. I like Anna and Elsa's interaction with each other. Artwork is really solid, and if you like this franchise, like I said, I think this is the best we've gotten from it. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 10. All right, moving on to number 9, which is Bettie Page Unbound, issue 9. And Bettie Page, I like the series a lot, and I thought this was a really good opener where we get to see Alyssa, I think her name's Alyssa, Betty's friend's family helping Bettie out, and then these bugs come in to attack, and Alyssa's family are badasses, and they go on their journey to try to get rid of these bug people, and we get to see some storylines from this arc come back, especially some of that Crisis on Infinite Earth type deal going on in this issue with the hallucination. So overall, I will say this is kind of a jam-packed issue, and if you haven't loved all the arcs going on, I don't know how invested you would be, but overall, I like kind of the silliness that they're trying to play with. Very old-school, B-list horror movie subjects here, and I love Bettie, and I really especially love the moments where she could just kind of be with herself and interact with her friends, I think even more than the kind of craziness that she's going up against. But I did love that moment where Bettie goes up against her clone self, and she says, oh, that was the easiest thing to do because I helped my friend, and it was the hardest because kind of like, killing yourself. So I thought that was a really interesting scene, and I like the dialogue a lot there. Artwork is pretty solid. There are 2 artists on this, so I was able to notice as I was reading, but it's pretty similar, the styles, which is nice. So overall, I'm going to give Bettie Page Unbound issue 9 3.5 stars. Sorry again for the glare. I'm going to see how I end up editing that in post. But yeah, moving on to number 8, which is Go-Go Power Rangers, issue 27. Go-Go Power Rangers, this was a really solid issue. I will say it's a bit of a point A to point B issue. Go-Go, I guess the one fault of where it is now is that we know where the story's going, so it's a little harder to kind of maneuver, but I like the added character moments we get where we're really getting to see the passing of the torch, where Tommy becomes a White Ranger and is taking over leadership, and Jason's got to deal with that, but he also has a lot on his plate as he's dealing with them becoming Omega Rangers. So, he's like, yeah, you could take the team, because he has his own team going on. He has a fresh new adventure ahead of him, so you kind of understand that. And we do get to, I did love the Kimberly Matt scene where Matt's, just trying to be a good guy, just seeing if Kim's okay after the Power Ranger fight. And you can see some sparks between the two, but, Tommy comes back and Kim goes straight into his arms. So I'm curious if it meant that she actually does care about Tommy and she really wanted to go straight into his arms, or it's like, oh, I have feelings for Matt, I want to totally ignore these and go straight into Tommy's arms. So I feel like there's different ways you could look into that scene, which was really interesting, and I love their dynamic a lot. I will say this issue was a little bit slower, though, because again, they are trying to fit a lot of stuff in this issue, a lot of plot points that they need to get through, but overall, I think the character moments really shine. Artwork is pretty solid overall, even though I think that the characters have a bit more of an anime feel than they have in the past, but I especially like the mecha stuff going on with this issue. So, Go-Go Power Rangers issue 27 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, as I take a sip of water. Number 7 for me is Teen Titans issue 38. So, Teen Titans, I really like this book. I think it's grown so much since the beginning. And what I like is that none of these heroes are perfect. You know, the reason they're family or becoming family and friends is because they keep making mistakes. They're kind of anti-heroes in some sort of ways. And I especially love Roundhouse and him trying to get back with his friends. I will say there's a little bit of slower parts because of the Other and Damian, and that really depends how much you read of Damian's arc with Batman Incorporated. I did read it. Wasn't that fascinated by his death, but I think you really do need to read those stories to kind of get the full story or the full scope of what's going on here. But I love the ending where Damian kind of realizes he needs his team and he forgives Roundhouse. It's kind of out of character but in character for Damian to show how much he's grown to forgive him and them working as a team to get Djinn back. So really solid stuff. Artwork, it definitely has a distinct taste to this title, which is cool. It feels different from other Teen Titans books. And overall, going to give that 4 stars. I thought it was a really solid book. And I love this team. And I just love the way that they aren't perfect characters. And that's kind of puts the puzzle pieces together for them. So moving on to number 6, which is Valkyrie, issue 7. A little lower than usual, but I love this book, as you guys know. I will say there's some exposition about, medicine and stuff like that. The doctor side of things that I thought slowed down stuff, but I like the kind of philosophy aspect of this issue where Jane has to decide, and really all the medical heroes here have to decide, do you kill death? What does that mean? They've all gone through patients dying and that being hard for them, and realizing that's kind of part of the process of life, and same for their own lives. We really dig into Jane's trauma of losing her son and losing her ex-husband and all that drama between Thor and how hard that was for her, and then obviously still dealing with not consequences, but being a cancer survivor and how that affects her characters. So we get a lot of that, and how she is connected to death as a Valkyrie and as a doctor, and again all her past and how important death actually is. So I thought it was a really poignant story, and I love that aspect of it. Again, there are some slower parts in this issue, but I like the team up. I like again, this kind of overall theme of how death follows Jane in a way, and how Jane as a character, as Valkyrie and a human, deals with that, and we really get to see that mesh here. So Valkyrie issue 7 gets 4 stars for me. Really solid issue. Love this book. Love this character. So glad that it's been on a roll. So that's number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is 5 years, issue 7 we're up to. And this is actually a really quick read. It was the first book I read because I was flipping through it. I'm like, oh, there's not a lot of dialogue, so I guess I'll just read it first. And this was a really good issue, though. We get to see Kachu goes to Moscow, never has been to Russia, and she's like, I don't even know how to speak Russian, so this is going to be fun. And we deal with that, those events of her just living in a city that she doesn't really know the rules about, and she goes to this hotel, gets pushed out a window, a very high window, and she sees David, which was very interesting, because I guess she's on the brink of death. I don't know how she survived that fall, but she does, and there's this woman, it looks like, that's trying to kill her, and we don't know who it is. Maybe it's Stephanie, the Parker girl, who knows, and then Zoe comes into the rescue and says, hey, welcome to Russia. We've had some fun times here. Artwork's really good, too. I love the ambiance of the snow. Overall, really solid issue. It takes very few words to kind of get there, but it is definitely an action-packed tension builder. So 5 years, issue 7 gets 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to Second Coming, issue 6, which is number 4. I absolutely love this book. I hope it doesn't take too long to get to the next arc. And this is really good. I love the new philosophies that Jesus is kind of learning and God's learning, and that, not everyone has the perfect answer, not even God. And how their past and their present has kind of helped them see this new view of life. And we actually get to see Jesus kill the devil. And he's like, everything I kind of been avoiding, violence, I had to do violence to kind of do the right thing. So what does that mean? And are these people doing the right thing? So I thought that was interesting. And going into our hero story. We finally get to see him marry his girlfriend, and now she's pregnant. She wasn't able to get pregnant, and God gives them a gift. So what is this baby gonna be? Will it have any like Mother Mary religious connections to it? We'll have to see. But overall, I thought it was really, really solid issue. Good ending. Again, love the cliffhanger. Love these characters. And artwork was really good. The meshing of the Old Testament look to the superhero look. I've always been impressed with that. So, Second Coming issue 6 gets 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, and also my top 5. I just really enjoyed all these books. It was a good week for me for comics. But yeah, number 3 for me is The Red Mother issue 2 or up to. And damn, the tension in this book, it's just like class A what to do in a horror book, where we get to see Daisy, our main character, is still dealing with the trauma of losing her boyfriend, losing her eye, and everything else that goes between, and how she's getting back into the swing of things, or hopefully getting back into the swing of things to continue her life. And she's seeing her boyfriend in these visions, and the boyfriend says, hey, you gotta follow the Red Mother, and then these visions of, I guess, the Red Mother or something connected to the Red Mother, Daisy seeing and kind of making, not a fool of herself, but I guess we'll use the fool of herself in public as she tries to run away from this being. So in the end, we find out that she gets a puzzle, though, from who knows who, because the therapist kind of mentions you should use puzzles to kind of figure out where you want to go in life, and the puzzle is shown at the end right there. So very interesting ending. I love the themes. I love how PTSD is dealt here. I love the art, especially the coloring with red and then the normal colors. Just the mixing of it all really brings this interesting horror to it. And what I like is that it's very lingering. The pacing is slow, but in a really good way. It kind of, the horror aspects creep up on you, just like it's creeping up in Daisy and her normal life. So I love the tone of this book, and that's kind of what really makes it. Obviously, Daisy does too. I just love following her as a character, but I'm totally attached to this book. So the Red Mother issue 2 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. So you can see, pretty good week if we're starting on number 3 with 4.5 stars. All right, moving on to number 2, which is Deadeyes, issue 4, which actually, the back of the book has a little quote for me from Newsarama, if you want to check that out. But, yeah, I absolutely love this book. So, Deadeyes here, we get to see, he's not a bad guy. He's trying to get this money to actually give to the people that helped him out, didn't really have to give the money. And then we're seeing his wife kind of, you understand why they married each other. Kind of has a very similar viewpoint of these people who, are in the hospital trying to get treatment, having to spend money to get this treatment. And she says, well, they don't deserve that. Like, why can't they just get the treatment they need? Why do they have to pay this money? So you can kind of see these inklings of her being like, what do I do here? So, I just love the interactions between him and her. I love his voice in this book. And again, like how you could kind of root for this guy. He's not going about it in a good way, but you understand why he's doing the stuff he's doing and trying to help people in his sick, twisted way. But yeah, he's also just really funny too. We get to see one of these, the wife of someone who died. He has to burn her house down, and he says, well, don't go somewhere or whatever. Like, if I see you and you tell them who I am, I know where you used to live. So those little lines were really great. I love how gritty the artwork is. I think it works so well for this book. Again, it has humor, and it just is kind of this perfect balance of tone for this book. So I really love it. I love these characters. I love this world, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So Deadeyes issue 4 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1 for me, which is Runaways, issue 29. Man, this was a good issue. I liked, obviously some of the jokes we get here too, in just some of the character moments with Molly falling asleep everywhere in this issue, because of her powers and like, oh, you gotta work at it. You gotta build your stamina up, and she doesn't quite listen. Also that Molly's taller than pretty much everybody on this team right now, and Nico's the one yelling at her, is like, you can't drink coffee, you'll stunt your growth. And she's like, I'm taller than you. What are you saying? So her talking about her friend who only eats chicken nuggets to Gib because he has to figure out his chicken nuggets was a lot of fun. But yeah, going into why this is my pick of the week though is the J team. Learning about them was kind of like, oh, this is interesting, especially as a comic fan. You're like, I could see this happening in a DC or Marvel book. Wait, it actually has happened in a DC and Marvel book. It's kind of a parody of the genre with obviously open arms, and we get to see that our Doc Justice he's not a good guy. The way he talks to his assistant, I guess I don't know what he is, but I guess his assistant is not great. And Gert's kind of is noticing this as the other teammates are like, yeah, we know we could die, like we're okay with that if it means we could be heroes and like kind of wipe our conscience clean of everything that our parents did. We don't want to be them, so we're going to do this whole extreme thing that probably is not healthy for us either. And even the moment we get to learn that Princess Justice, I forget her name, but the princess character that Carolina is right now, was married to Doc Justice 3 times, became Doc Justice the 4th time. So we have all these different princess characters, and in the end, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get with Carolina, and the assistant's like, you're okay. I don't think that's gonna happen. So I'm very curious to see where that ends up going, between him and Carolina and how she's gonna react to that. So very interesting plot threads here, and Gert being the hero of the story in a lot of ways to uncover what's actually going on with the J Squad, or not J Squad, J Team, sorry, I think I've been calling them the J Squad, the J Team all this time. So I like that. I really enjoyed that, and yeah, there's a lot of good humor, a lot of great character moments, but a lot of good plot progression as well. So artwork is always really solid stuff, really shows those emotional beats and character moments that I was just discussing. So really well done issue. I've been really enjoying this arc a lot. So giving that 4.5 stars, that is number 1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite comics of the week were, what your least favorite comics of the week were, and everything in between. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly on Comic Frontline, our comic podcast where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. So be sure to check that out as well. Thanks, guys.